Wow. Alright. It seems you guys really liked my review of Disventure Camp 4's premiere. And what kind of guy would I be if I didn't deliver something for every episode? To sum things up last time around, I thought episode 1 was a good start, but I was still left underwhelmed by more than half of the characters, which is less than ideal. But I'm happy to say the next run of things more than improved itself when it comes to the cast's general likability, while also improving most of the existing characters. I was a little scared that we'd only get a handful of character summaries that are only within the first episode, but we got a lot more this time around, which is reassuring. I feel the challenge was a little uninspired, especially from the perspective of being in a carnival, and I'm really hoping this was just a fluke and not an omen for what's to come. Because even a simple challenge like the first one had a roller coaster to keep the motif going strong. But even then, it worked as a great way to highlight certain team members' strengths and weaknesses. But enough of these overarching comments, let's tackle the episode from the very beginning. We immediately get clarification on Jade and Isabelle's decisions at the start of the episode. Isabelle takes an idol, and Jade takes an idol clue. The nuance from this scene comes from the two working together in order to create a believable lie for their respective teams to hear, proving both are a little rough around the edges for the sake of the game. The little scene of Isabelle and Jade's explanations swapping between each other was super well done. I'll get to Isabelle later, because I think I'm overdue for a discussion on Jade. A lot of people love her already. I honestly don't know how to feel about her yet. Her inherent role so far is super good, and someone as strategic as her is needed for these types of shows. But that's the thing, it feels like her gameplay is all she has at the moment. I had to look at her audition tape to figure out she was into ocean life, which also conceptualizes the turtle, which was a cute way to humanize her. But audition tape should be secondary material and not required viewing to get a better understanding of the characters. I'll still give her the benefit of the doubt though, as we could very well get more of a backstory or basic interests later on. But her lack of apparent motivations outside of just strategy does leave me very bored when seeing Jade and Spencer's alliance play out. But I still am excited to see where it'll go for when their team needs to vote. Diego, Tristan, Jade, and Ivy are name dropped by the both of them with the game plan of creating a core 5. And the way things are presented leads me to the idea that one member of the Tristan, Jade, Ivy trio is going to at least be an early target.
Tristan comes with 2 more since Jade and Ivy are already tight with them.
Good point, partner.
Who knows if things will go according to plan, but let's take note of it for next time around. A point was made to once again associate Spencer with Diego. And at first, Diego was someone I didn't much care for in episode 1 outside of his brief interaction with Spencer. And if I gotta be honest, Spencer was the main contributing factor towards why I liked that scene. But episode 2 really puts Diego up from the bottom of my list, as he is now super cool. Similar to Tristan, Diego gives me the impression of being his team's moral compass, and they do that by making his backstory very simple to complement his inherently good nature. Bro just wants to see animals. He's clearly going to have some sort of dynamic or ship going on with Spencer. I have no clue how it'll play out, but with how much Diego skyrocketed in personal enjoyment, I'm looking forward to it. Perpetuating this method of character building is Jade, who was enjoyable this time around when at first he was the least interesting part of the pre-established power trio. Similar to Diego, all it is a simple goal of being there to help his family, and we didn't need to overindulge in the specifics. Jade just wants to see the people he cares about smile. I commend it greatly, because characters like these are needed for any fictional elimination game. Going back around to Spencer and Jade, Amelie is revealed to have spied on the conversation even if it is left up in the air how much she knows. I'm still holding off on discussing Amelie in depth, as I still don't quite have enough to give a reasonable opinion, other than she's mean and paranoid, which plays off of Hannah. And if there was one character in the episode I'm sorta disappointed towards, it's Hannah. I'm just gonna come clean and say that the trauma of losing both of her parents is a weak way to get us invested in Hannah as an individual. Like, yeah, of course we're gonna be sad, but also I still don't feel much towards Hannah in the first place. Something on a much smaller scale is needed before getting into something this heavy. Running a bar and being oblivious to the show before actually coming on is good. That should have been it. The fact that a loss like this was an important enough moment to give us a flashback makes me a little scared of how much depth Hannah's really gonna have. If we absolutely need Hannah's family for the context of her story, I'd rather it be something akin to a side comment, like Isabelle stating her parents aren't Catholic. To be a little more positive, Hannah has an ability to read people, and her blunt deliveries are a fun way to amp that up. But so far, it's not nearly as prominent as how Ted utilized a similar ability, and I'll get to that later. So it's nothing groundbreaking. I don't think Hannah's apparent party-going nature fits with the other aspect of being an observant bartender well enough for my liking, but now I'm just being an asshole and nitpicking, so it's whatever. I'm sorry though. This episode soured my impression of Hannah a bit and left me concerned for how she's gonna end up. And also there's this.
Now, it's time for you to listen. Can you lay off the paranoia with Jade?
What do you mean lay off the paranoia? That's a part of the game. Hashtag Amelie did nothing wrong. Last episode, Linda promoted the idea of a girls' alliance, and the idea of that carries on to episode 2 with 5 of the girls on that respective team. One of Linda's biggest competitors is Anastasia, who's someone I still don't quite care for, but also I respect her contributions, mainly from how vocal she is towards personal annoyances. She's also Russian, and that's funny.
It's a rat!
Hell yeah, you show that rat who's boss. Her and Marissa are a duo and another potential ship at the moment, but right now I'm not invested. What I am a fan of is them being an inherent obstacle towards Linda, so I'm curious how that'll change the game's outcome. I'm cool with her being an early boot, but I can't say for certain. She has at least a handful of amusing moments, so I won't complain about her existence. There's nothing laugh out loud yet, but maybe 1 or 2 nose exhales, so that's something. Jumping forward a bit, we have our current winner for most useless character so far, Benji. Now that we have 2 episodes to go off of, it seems Benji's main bit is saying something unfunny and getting hurt. Not that big of a fan. I think Yule will always be the best execution of being intentionally unlikable within Disventure, mainly because his character trope was much more amplified to the point of absurdity, and he didn't feel like as much of a punching bag, with all of his karma moments feeling more like culminations rather than the inherent gag, making it more amusing for me personally. Like, I don't know. I feel like the only way this running gag can work is if Benji's one of the first boots on his team. Like, sure, he won't improve, but I'll still get the impression he served a purpose in the competition that didn't stick around for too long. Okay, I can't hold it in for any longer. It's time to check in on Best Girl Isabelle. You see, Isabelle is my favorite, and because of that, she gets perks. Perks like having her own segment of every review going forward where she's still in the competition, because someone as amazing as her only gets the best. This was a slightly less prominent episode for my girl, but there still was some pretty cool stuff. She got an immunity idol. I'm less interested in the decision itself, but more of the fact that she's treating it as almost a sin. I don't know how far she's going to go into villainy outside of taking advantage of not being a threat, but I am a fan of the inherent strategy. Her and Jade making an agreement to lie was pretty cool and gives off the impression of competence. But still, the fact that she's brushing off what she herself considers a sinful temptation is off-putting in a good way. I'm not completely against her religion being a big incorporation into her storyline, but a part of me hopes it's a red herring, and all of Isabelle's plays in the competition comes from her own wit and personality rather than religion. With that being said, I won't be happy if she ends up as the next Fiore, where her current persona is all a bunch of baloney. There's a middle ground between those 2 outcomes, and I want her to fall in between. The reason she's my favorite is contributed by her current personality of being an influencer with the none attribute only existing to throw us off the trail. I want that to stay consistent. So if Isabelle ends up as the main villain like I'm hearing some other people predict, all of her eccentricities are the reason for being unlikable from a storytelling perspective. Like Best Boy Chase. He didn't need to have his toxic personality shoved down our throat with exposition longer than 5 seconds. He just was toxic, and we all know he wasn't some strategic genius supervillain. Chase is a normal-looking influencer guy despite being a piece of shit. Isabelle could end up a faithful-looking influencer girl despite being pretty bombastic. We don't need some Bible verse spiel or an overdramatic shift into a mustache-twirling villain. But for now, she's still my favorite character, so let's gush over her. Look at the way she submits her vote, that's so cute! Look at their swimsuit! It's adorable! God, I love her. I can't even sell you guys enough on how much I love her. In fact, I love her so much that I did this piece of art the day after I wrote my episode 1 review. I love to draw, and this is how I express my enjoyment of Isabelle. I gave her a slightly crooked smile and some defined eyelashes to give off the impression of the girl not being your typical nun, and I'm super happy with how I pulled it off. Honestly, fuck it. Let's show off some more Isabelle art. Everyone's Twitter will be on screen to see, and if I see more Isabelle art, you bet I'll put it into the next episode's check-in. There's already 2 bits of ship art with Natalia, and they both look fantastic. She's also equally as sick-looking when gender-bent. I am absolutely in love with the clothing shading on this one in particular. And here she is pointing up at the Lord. Jesus Christ, this interpretation of her hair is adorable. I fucking love fluffy hair. This is amazing. I'll be peeking through Twitter, Reddit, and Tumblr for anything else to put into subsequent reviews, so keep the Isabelle art coming. Be sure to follow the ones here as well. Their Twitters will be in the description. Since I'm sharing these without permission, that's the least I can do. Alright, Isabelle session over. I think it's time to get to the dynamics of this episode's vote and our first elimination of Season 4. Gender lines are immediately drawn, which is a good contrast to the more consuming alliance plans within the other team's discussions, so it makes sense. Leading things for the most part is Linda. I vibed heavily with Linda's attempts and newfound uneasiness at forming a girls' alliance, which managed to create conflict and work as a way to bring last-minute tension to the vote. She very much can't help with side remarks, which makes me expect a huge target on her back going forward, mainly towards Anastasia and Marissa. I'm super curious if her and Ted will further their relations going forward after outing herself as a potential untrustworthy competitor towards the rest of the girls. Speaking of Ted, fucking Ted! I thought he was already characterized super well, but the almost supernatural ability to read faces is such a cool way to set him apart as a contestant. I hope this is treated as an actual power and not just some one-off plot device so it can be used in the future. Like a human lie detector, this would then work as an obstacle on that team for everyone else to play around with. Now, the play itself wasn't the most impressive, but it was a good way to kick off the strategy of this season. Ted simultaneously painted a target on his back by confronting Linda, but still got himself out of a pickle quite gracefully. It wouldn't have even existed in the first place if he just let things go the way they were going. Meaning this acts as a half failure on his end in my opinion, but it still managed to create cracks in the girls' alliance super early. So what do I know? He also has a much scrappier approach to challenges, in a way where he just barely won his round of the challenge. I liked that, and hey, it complements how headstrong he comes off as in every regard. As a little break from discussing strategy, our third LGBTQ character drop of the season is Richard. His backstory probably had the most fluent introduction in the whole cast, and that's because it had build-up we saw firsthand. I love the little scene of halting the challenge to help Tristan, all for the sake of creating a fair and fun game. Kinda like a more proactive Sam. He was mostly a background element of his team's vote, but I do like his inherent comedic presence as a way to lighten what's otherwise a tense elimination.
Interesting. If I didn't know any better, I'd say that gender lines have been drawn.
Trevor, we all respect each other as individuals, and gender didn't play a role.
And I hope he sticks around for at least a few more episodes. Okay, break time is over. Time to discuss the best part of the episode. Logan is now one of my biggest highlights in the whole cast, and this vote alone put him within the top 3. I already praised his voice actor's delivery, but even more so the dude managed to pull off Logan's simple mindset of going along with everyone else's shenanigans, which might I add, I predicted. But I hope it isn't in the sense of using that as commentary about how wacky the rest of the cast is, and more of the vibe that he's here to play along with everyone's shenanigans. This personality trait they gave him bounces off of Alessio amazingly. Having a character who's as emotionally insecure as Alessio makes Logan's carefree and kind nature super rewarding. Odd Nation single-handedly managed to make their best duo in the whole series in like 5 minutes. How did they do that? I'm about to serve you guys some harsh browns right now, but I believe it shouldn't take time for a newly formed duo to be engaging. Whether it be an alliance or a friend group, we should immediately reap the benefits of these characters being together. And otherwise, 9 times out of 10, it's bad writing. So whenever I'm finding a group of characters in fan seasons uninteresting, and someone says, "Bro, give it time," I roll my eyes. Logan and Alessio's friendship immediately captivated me, and there didn't need to be one bit of strategy to work as foreplay. They just have chemistry. We gotta talk about Alessio now, as he was the other half of this amazing pair. First off, I now love Alessio, which leaves me even more conflicted with the fact that he's the very first elimination. Like sure, it was built up perfectly, but also, I really liked him, and the fact that a perfectly formed group of characters is going to get so little time together just disappoints me. Basically, he's a struggling artist who can't find inspiration. He goes on reality TV to cure his artist's block before Logan butts in and gets him to reflect on himself by giving him a new perspective with his carefree attitude, which works as an antithesis to his original goal of isolating himself from his peers. Linda decides to play the middle ground, which in turn gets rid of Alessio. I can't take points away from the actual execution though. In a vacuum, this is one of my favorite eliminations in the whole series. I can't commend it enough. Disventure does include returnees or challenges with eliminated contestants, so I only hope he gets time to shine in those. Ending things off, my new winner hope is Logan. I know we have very little of the show to work off of, but how cool would it be if the season's winner had such a unique friendship with the respective first boot, especially when I loved it so much. Damn, that's all I need to say. This episode was a big improvement from the first one. So many more characters had time to shine, and I'm really interested in how the dynamics are going to play out. If there's any wish for the future, I still think a handful of characters don't have enough compelling traits just yet, such as Marissa, Natalia, Benji, and Jade. And we really need more fitting challenges to the season's locale to justify its aesthetic. But hey, anything is possible. Remember to do more art of Isabelle for my own sake and to watch the rest of my future reviews. I love you all. Bye-bye.
Cut the jukebox on, make the woofers blow. We gon' sit here until all them heifers go. Holler at the tens and spend a little dough. Not on them, no, they can buy their own drinks. Take that work week off, 5 days in the bucket. Fuck it, you got a boss who's a jerk.